CTV News, Vancouver Island Report.
Good evening. Thanks for being here. A BC Supreme Court judge in Nanaimo ruled today that Clare Bekkers is not guilty of impaired or dangerous driving in the crash that killed her 2 young sons. The boys died in December 2008, just before Christmas, when their mother lost control of the family SUV on an icy stretch of highway in Cassidy. Now, 3.5 years later, an emotional but relieved Clare Bekkers has been cleared of criminal wrongdoing in the crash. CTV's Chandler Grieve has her story.
It's over, and I'd like to just go home.
And now she can.
Wants to go home and hug her children. She'd like to leave.
After a 7-month trial with multiple adjournments and postponements,
I just want to go home.
a BC Supreme Court judge has ruled Nanaimo mother Clare Bekkers is not guilty of impaired or dangerous driving in the crash that killed her 2 sons.
She couldn't even talk to me. She was breathing and just trying to breathe in heavily and sobbing. I mean, you know, her reaction is she's happy this part's over. The rest of it's still just beginning for her. She'll be grieving for the rest of her life.
2-year-old Cooper Bekkers and his 9-year-old brother Lucas died just before Christmas in 2008. After the SUV their mother was driving veered into oncoming traffic just south of Nanaimo. Clare Bekkers and her 2 daughters survived the horrific accident. Charges were laid after traces of alcohol, cocaine, and antidepressants were found in Clare Bekkers' system. But in the end, the judge said it wasn't enough for a conviction.
That isn't a complete surprise. We were primarily utilizing the evidence of the impairment to support her attitude and her manner of driving. So the fact that it didn't quite meet the threshold to sustain a conviction isn't a surprise.
But the Crown was surprised at the not guilty verdict on the dangerous driving charges. Witnesses told the court Bekkers was driving very fast, trying to pass other drivers in icy conditions. The judge agreed that Bekkers may have been negligent behind the wheel, but negligence is not criminal.
It was a perfect storm. We had been very cold for 2 days before this. It was in the shadow of a hill right at sunset, and no one expected the black ice, I don't believe.
A roadside memorial sits at the stretch of road that forever changed Clare Bekkers' life. A barrier now separates north and southbound traffic at the notorious Cassidy Corner. Had it been here back in 2008, the Bekkers boys could still be alive.
She's got to live with a life of hell, the poor woman, for the rest of her life for the death of her 2 kids. But she's sure glad this part of her life is over.
Give a sense of closure.
There's no relief in this accident.
Not guilty and not going to jail, Clare Bekkers is free to take the next steps in her life, but she'll do it without her 2 sons, perhaps worse than any punishment a court could impose. Chandler Grieve, CTV News, Nanaimo.